Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for EMBCA's The Legacy of a Great International Statesman, Ioannis Kapodistrias, on the anniversary of his birth. My name is Lou Katsos, EMBCA's president, and I will be moderating today's panel discussion. Our distinguished panelists includes Professor Ilias, Giarenis, Vice Rector of the Ionian University, a professor and archaeologist of ancient history, Pierre Ducrey of the University of Lausanne, George Kalpadakis, senior researcher at the Modern Greek History Research Center at the Akadimi of Athens, and well-known film director, screenwriter, Giannis Smaragdis. Ioannis Kapodistrias, a prominent Hellenic and international statesman in the 19th century, left an indelible mark on the course of Hellenic as well as European history. Born in Corfu, February 11, today, in 1776, Kapodistrias embarked on a remarkable career that would culminate in his role as the first head of state of independent Ilias. His legacy is multifaceted, encompassing international diplomatic achievements, administrative reforms, and enduring contributions to the concept of a modern Hellenic nation-state. Ioannis Kapodistrias' early years were marked by a diverse range of experiences on the Ionian Islands, in Russia, and Geneva. He began his political journey on the Ionian Islands, where he served in administrative positions under French and then British rule. His exposure honed his skills on governance and diplomacy. His career then took a turn towards Russia, where he became a prominent figure in diplomatic circles and served as the Russian Minister of Foreign Affairs and later as the Russian ambassador to the Italian states. During his time in Russia, Kapodistrias developed a keen understanding of European politics, laying the foundation for his future diplomatic endeavors. Geneva became another significant chapter in Kapodistrias' life, and following his Russian diplomatic career, he settled in Geneva and engaged in intellectual pursuits. His time in the Swiss city saw him contributing to political thought and international affairs. Kapodistrias, drawing on his extensive background in governance and diplomacy, offered valuable perspectives that influenced discussions on constitutional matters in Geneva. His ideas on governance, statecraft, and the balance of power left an indelible mark on the shaping of the Swiss constitution. While Kapodistrias is often celebrated for his role in Hellenic history, his influence on the Swiss constitutional landscape underscores the breadth of his impact on political thought beyond the borders of his homeland. His experiences in Geneva provided a platform for him to reflect on governance and statecraft, which would later influence his role in shaping the starting up of the Hellenic state. His diplomatic prowess was evident in his efforts to secure Hellenic independence during a tumultuous era. In the aftermath of the Napoleonic Wars, he navigated the complex European political landscape to garner support for the Hellenic cause. His diplomatic endeavors culminated in the Protocol of St. Petersburg in 1826, which recognized Ilias as an autonomous, albeit still Ottoman vassal state. His diplomatic success laid the groundwork for the subsequent development of the independent Hellenic state. As the governor of Ilias from 1827 to 1831, Kapodistrias faced the Herculean task of nation building. His administrative reforms aimed at modernizing the Hellenic state and ensuring its viability. He introduced a centralized administrative system, reorganized the military, and implemented economic policies to stabilize the nation. However, his attempts at centralization faced resistance from regional powers and traditional Hellenic elites, leading eventually to internal strife. His history and legacy extends beyond the realm of governance, encompassing cultural and academic contributions. He recognized the importance of education in forging a national identity, and which helped us establish the University of Athens later in 1837. This institution played a pivotal role in nurturing intellectual and cultural development, contributing significantly to the resurgence of Hellenic national consciousness. Despite his notable achievements, his legacy is also marked by controversy and tragic demise. His vision of a centralized state clashed, as we indicated before, with the aspirations of local leaders, and political opposition grew. The assassination of Ioannis Kapodistrias in 1831 in Nafplio reflected a complex challenge of nation building in the post-revolutionary context. His death highlighted the struggle between centralization and regional autonomy, a tension that would persist in Hellenic politics for many years to come. I'd like now to start, we have an excellent panel, a distinguished panel, as I indicated, and I'd like to start introducing them for some short presentations before we start our open panel discussion. Our first one is Ilias Giarenis. He was born in Athens. He is a Byzantinist, professor of Byzantine intellectual history at Ionian University. He is also the vice rector of this university. He has written on the Empire of Nicaea, on the Empire of Trebizond, and on the fragmented Byzantine world in 1204, on the Holy Face, and on the Byzantine author and clergyman Nikolaos Mazaritis. He has co-authored collective volumes on the scholar and Cardinal Bessarion, and on scholars and scholarship in Byzantium. He has also co-edited the Honorary volume Books and Learning in the Byzantine world. He has taken part in many international congresses, colloquia, and conferences in Greece, in Athens, Thessaloniki, Giannis, Corfu, Stras, Sparti, Trikala, etc. Great Britain and London, in Cyprus, in Italy, Croatia, and Hungary. His current research interests include Byzantine scholarship and education, the world of manuscripts in Byzantium, and the reception of Byzantium in modern and contemporary Hellas. Welcome, Ilias, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be part of this great panel, and I'm very happy to send you warm greetings from Corfu, the place where Kapodistrias was born. Ioannis Kapodistrias is undoubtedly a personality of great importance for modern Greek history, of course, but also his contribution to Russian and European history is also interesting and valuable. He was born in Corfu in 1776, interestingly, the very year of the Declaration of Independence in America. And that was also 13 years before the iconic French Revolution. And this was not a mere coincidence. These were years of constant confrontations, traditions, and changes in the whole of Europe, and not only in Europe. The end of the 18th and the beginning of the 19th century were eras of change and eras of challenge. Ioannis was born and raised on the island of Corfu, where Western European influences and presence were vivid. I think that it is a very interesting element which sometimes gets ignored regarding Kapodistrias, that he was born and raised in a European island, an island where Western influences were very vivid, and that it was very easy for people from Corfu, for inhabitants of Corfu to travel towards the West. Sometimes, and most of the times, it was easier than traveling to the East. So this has to do with the background that Kapodistrias had in Corfu. Later on, he stayed for 1 year in Venice, where he improvised his knowledge of Latin and Italian. But there, in Venice, he also came in contact with the ideas of European Enlightenment, the ideas which were somehow, it was not very easy for someone to talk about these in Venice, but this dialogue was open there, and this was the first time that Kapodistrias came in contact with these very interesting ideas, which also formed him in a way. He studied medicine, but he also attended classes of law and literature at the University of Padova, and this was a common practice for people from the Ionian Islands and from other Venetian-dominated islands and lands in Greece. It was in his hometown that he was also first involved in the administration of the short-lived Septinsular Republic, and this was his first step in politics. So Corfu played an important role in his formation, and in all the aspects that were the areas, were the spheres of interest for Kapodistrias. I mean, the spiritual aspect, the political aspect, the aspect of concern towards the society. After his return to Corfu, he started acting as a physician with a particular sympathy towards the poor inhabitants of the island. And in 1808, he entered the Russian diplomacy, which was in concordance with both his family's political stance and the aspirations of many Corfians of the time who sought for help from the Orthodox blonde race. Let's not forget this tradition, which was active even at that era. He stayed in St. Petersburg. He then moved to Switzerland, where he contributed in the establishment of the Constitution and the consolidation of the United States. As Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia during the Congress of Vienna, he confronted Metternich's despotism and took care to elaborate the issues of constitutional rights and to internationalize the Greek issue. It was something that Kapodistrias had all the features needed to do. After a rupture towards Charles' policy, Kapodistrias returned to Corfu, and after his resignation, he moved to Geneva, where he acted as an influential agent to Hellenism that grew there. So it is a contribution for the Greek state and for the Greek issue from another point of view, from another aspect, this patronage of Hellenism in which Kapodistrias was active. In 1827, he became the governor. At the beginning of 1828, on Egina, there was an enthusiastic welcome to him. Kapodistrias saw in modern Greece of the era the opportunity of an implementation of the attractive to him, but not only to him, an ancient legend of the phoenix, which gets reborn, gets recreated from his ashes. But his vision for Hellenism and the Hellenic state of his era did not prevent him from the practical moves and measurements. He thought that agriculture needed to take into consideration all the steps of progress that had been taken in modern Europe, and that knowledge and instruction on the issues were of high value for the economic growth and social coherence in the new state. He thus established the School of Agriculture. He also ensured the conclusion of a loan, which would give the important capital for the expansion of the Greek economy. He took effective measures against piracy, thus providing a healthy or a healthier, to be more accurate, a healthier framework to navigation. He puts stress on education and culture as values, and he also puts stress on the need for conservation of ancient heritage, especially through the foundation of the first archaeological museum in modern Greece, that is the Archaeological Museum of Aegina, and this was founded in 1829. In the following year, in 1930, the Congress of London acknowledged the independence of Greece. Kapodistrias made every effort to establish an economically viable and socially coherent state. This was not easy. In order to do so, he came in contrast to many powerful notables, who in certain cases had been leading personages of the Greek Revolution. And this was not far before. This was something which was not many years before. So this contrast had an effect on his reputation and on his fame and on how the people who could not see his actions very well had on him. But this did not destroy his reputation or fame. This clash of interests that I talked about was mostly a clash between public and private interest. In other words, a confrontation between the state and some powerful families, which had acted for its establishment, but now wanted to maintain all their privileges and their status. Through his commitment to common interests, and because of the stark opposition he faced, Kapodistrias was gradually led to an authoritative and sometimes authoritarian way of government, which further estranged him from some powerful personages who held influence and enjoyed respect, also because of their contribution to the battles and to the events of the revolution. By 1831, Kapodistrias seems to have had most of the leaders of the revolution opposing him. The confrontation was vivid. Governor Kapodistrias fought uncompromisingly for the benefit of the state and saw the authoritarian model as the only one that could be effective in the framework of the era. Some saw him as a tyrant and started thinking even of a tyrant killing. The arrest of Petrobes Mavromichalis triggered the violent and bloody reaction of two members of his family. On the morning of 17th September 1831, Kapodistrias was shot and stabbed outside the church of St. Spiridon, where he was to attend the Sunday Holy Service, as always, as usually. The church was ironically dedicated to the holy patron of Corfu, the governor's hometown. What could or would have been if Kapodistrias had not been shot, if Kapodistrias had not been assassinated, had not been killed? Unfortunately, I cannot talk on this. This is where a historian always stops. And this is where other aspects, very interesting and very illustrative in my thought, in my opinion, where literature, arts, and discussion in the public sphere pick up the torch. In Greece, many documentaries and a docudrama have been created on Kapodistrias, and his legacy stands out as distinctive, valuable, and exemplary. Nikos Kazantzakis, in 1944, wrote his theatrical piece on the island of Aegina on Kapodistrias. The piece has been repeatedly presented in Greece and Cyprus, especially in the Greek National Theatre. Many of other theatrical pieces written and presented, especially in 2021, focused on Kapodistrias or included him in their revolutionary défilé. Now, in 2024, a film by Giannis Smaragdis, which will focus on him, is expected with great interest. History has given the material for a rich and sometimes vivid dialogue. A personage who came from Corfu, an island out of the borders of the new Greek state, and I think that this is very important, had become an important politician who tried to combine realpolitik and the ideals of equality. And this is a very interesting and original combination. In contemporary debate, he is mostly depicted as a martyr or a tragic hero. And this is how Kazantzakis also depicted him. He gave the subtitle on his Ioannis Kapodistrias, a tragedy. That's why hagiographies do exist on him, because he is mostly depicted as a martyr or a tragic hero. And some heretical texts have also tried to challenge this meant as orthodoxy. What I tried to show was that he was also a man of his era, not only a martyr or a tragic hero, but he was a man of his era, his hometown, Corfu, and of the cities he lived in, of the states he lived in, and he was formated by both his hometown and the states for which he acted, and he was a great statesman. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that, Ilias. Very nice, thank you. Our next presenter is Pierre Ducrey. He is a very important and well-known Swiss archaeologist and professor, and also a recipient of the Order of the Phoenix by the Hellenic government, as well as having received an honorary doctorate award from the University of Athens. He was born in Lausanne, Switzerland, and received his doctorate in letters at the University of Lausanne in Switzerland. He was a foreign member of the French School of Archaeology in Athens and assistant professor in classical archaeology at the University of Freiburg, and a visiting member of the Institute of Advanced Study at Princeton. He was a professor of ancient Greek and Roman history at the University of Lausanne, an emeritus professor, a dean, a vice rector, a rector, president of Ioniki Network, and the director of the Swiss School of Archaeology in Greece. Pierre was the treasurer of the International Association of Greek and Roman Epigraphy, President Association and Foundation Pro Aventico since 1995, Treasurer International Committee in History Sciences from 1995 to 2007. He was the president of the foundation of the Swiss School of Archaeology in Greece from 2007 to 9, vice president since 2010. He's also a foundation of classical antiquity from 2005 to 2009, and the director since 2010. He's a member of the Akadimi of Inscriptions, Elbels, Letters in the Institute of France in Paris in 2008, and his books include Wars and Warriors in Ancient Greece, written in the French. Welcome, Pierre, and thank you for being with us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for your invitation. I think I will rely on the help of Konstantinos to give the images which will illustrate my talk. Konstantinos. Well, that's it. Thank you. I will speak about Jean Kapodistrias. Is he a Swiss national hero? It's something a little paradoxical. Next slide, please. And here we have the two classical images, the bust of Kapodistrias and the painting. Next image. I will begin with a paradoxical statement. The curiosity of the life of Kapodistrias is illustrated by his absence in the 200th century anniversary of the Greek Declaration of Independence, marked in France by the major exhibition. You have the catalogue on the screen. The major exhibition, I translate, Paris, Athens, Birth of Modern Greece, 1675-1919, presented from September 21 to February 22 at the Musée du Louvre, then followed by a symposium with the title France, Greece, regards insolite objects, places and people, held at the Academy of the Inscription and Belles-Lettres in Paris. And in this event, it may come as a surprise that neither the exhibition at the Louvre, nor its extensive catalogue, nor the two-day symposium mentioned, 1827 to 31, nor the name of Kapodistrias were present at all. It's quite curious for us. And in the meantime, next image, from 15th of October 21 to 12th February 22, at the initiative of the Hart Foundation of the Study of Classical Antiquity in Vendôme near Geneva, the Art and History Museum of Geneva presented the exhibition. You have the title and the two images. Why two images? Because the catalogue you have on the right-hand side was printed in Greece and reprinted in Greece at the Oikos editing Melissa, because we were asked to publish the catalogue in Greece. So it's paradoxical that on one side of the Jura mountain, France, nobody mentions Kapodistrias, and same time you have a very important exhibition in Geneva and a success story with the catalogue, which is imprinted, which is on sale, still on sale in Greece. So I just show you one or two images. Next image is the image of the inauguration of the exhibition at the Museum of Geneva. On the board speaking is the former president of the Swiss federal state, Pascal Couchepin, and you have all kind of important people on the left-hand side and quite numerous public. Next image shows you theater representation from Geneva, but shown in Lausanne, also in 21. Next. And the echo of all that in Greece, which is quite funny for us, because I might translate the title of one of the two articles, Ithel and Amaskani Helvetia, which is an homage to Kapodistrias, and a second article published on the publication of the catalogue in Greece, Agnostos mas Agnostos, known and unknown Kapodistrias. Next image. Why can we say today that Kapodistrias is a kind of hero of the Swiss federal state? I say a kind because his action was on many levels. One was on a national level. He played a very important role to make Switzerland, to make that the neutrality of Switzerland was recognized at the Vienna Congress. He was there as an envoy and plenipotentiary ambassador in Switzerland. He traveled through Switzerland between 1813 and 1814, and he visited all the places, discussed with all the people, and he was of the Tsar. And during this stay, he also met a few very prominent Geneva, especially Charles de Rochemont and Jean-Gabriel Hénard, who are going to play a very important role in the next step of his career. And during the Vienna Congress, he met the same people, the people from Geneva and the people from Vaud, whom he helped to formulate the wish of Switzerland to be independent and neutral on one hand, and on the other hand, he tried and helped to change the whole figuration of Switzerland. You see the green part of Switzerland, which is the so-called conservative, in a way colonial Switzerland, where in the center Bern was very present in the north, and also until on the south part of Switzerland, on the shore of Lake of Geneva. And there were all this green part was the conservative government of Switzerland. Then came Napoleon's War and Congress of Vienna. And the next slide will show you the change. And you see that where it's written Waadt, W-A-A-D-T, is now the canton of Vaud. And on the left-hand side below in red, Genf, which is Geneva. You see that the two states became cantons, states in Switzerland, and they were given an independence. They were independent states of the Swiss federal state. And this is the role of Kapodistrias was to help to create these two states. But it was not so easy, because the green part before the former slide, the green part became completely different. And you see the violet state of Bern, which is bigger than on the precedent slide on one part only, on the left-hand side upper part, which is is a part which belonged to the bishops of Basel. And Kapodistrias' role was to give this part of which did not belong to Bern as a compensation of the loss of Canton de Vaud. And that was a masterpiece of diplomacy. For this reason, Kapodistrias became an honorary citizen of Canton de Vaud and of the city of Lausanne, as well as Canton of Geneva. These steps were followed by, as you know, from 1815 to 1822, Kapodistrias played a very important role in Russia. He was joint foreign minister of Russia, and he did not play anymore any role in Switzerland until 1822. And 1822, he had to resign from his position of ambassador, foreign minister of Russia, and he retired in Geneva. Next slide. The next slide, this shows us the place where 10 Rue de l'Hôtel de Ville, where Kapodistrias stayed from 1822 to 1827. And we will see next slide the plaque. Ici demeura, which means here stayed from 1822 to 27, Jean Kapodistrias de Corfu, minister of the Tsar Alexander I, at the Congress of Vienna and Paris, governor élu, elected governor of the Free Greece, honorary citizen of Geneva and of Lausanne. Next slide shows us the Quai Kapodistrias in Geneva, where you can read K. Kapodistrias, Jean-Antoine Kapodistrias, 1831, diplomat, homme politique, political personality, who defended the interest of Geneva and Switzerland at the Vienna Congress. Next image. There we travel, we go to Lausanne, where we have a very funny image. This is the image in September 2009. On the left-hand side, you see the figure of the foreign minister of today's Russia, Sergei Lavrov, in the middle, the Lord Mayor of Lausanne, and on the right-hand side, laughing, the Swiss Minister of Foreign Affairs. And they show on the right-hand side, you see the bust of Kapodistrias, next image. This is the bust of Kapodistrias in Ouchy, in the city of Lausanne. Next, you will see the text, Ioannis Kapodistrias, same dates, eminent diplomat, political Russian, homme politique russe, Russian political personality, first honorary citizen of the Canton de Vaud, and the first honorary citizen of Lausanne, first president of Greece. Next. Here you have on the left-hand side Sergei Lavrov and our foreign minister of the time, Micheline Calmiret. That was a nice period, 2009. Switzerland was considered as neutral from the Russian government, which is no more the case because of the sanctions Switzerland took after the invasion of Ukraine, unfortunately. So the very friendly image belongs to the past. Next. And here again, the bust with our minister, lady, and Sergei Lavrov. Next. We have in Lausanne an alley, Ioannis Kapodistrias, doctor in medicine, diplomat, first honorary citizen of the city of Lausanne in 1816. Next. And here the biography of Kapodistrias. I will conclude with a remark on the question. It's interesting to see in the south part of Switzerland, Kapodistrias is known and popular and has busts and has streets and so on. In the rest of Switzerland, it's not so known, although he played this important role for the neutrality of Switzerland. But the question is, how is it possible that in France, he has not been considered as such a very important personality? And this can be explained, but it's a complicated issue, but it can be partly explained because he was foreign minister of the Tsar, and he was long regarded as a Russophile friendly of Russia, as opposed to the other factions who played a role in the war of independence of Greece, England and France. This label got him into trouble with both England and France, due to the diplomatic and military game these powers were playing with each other, and with at the end of the war of independence. And in July 1831, when this insurrection in the island of Hydra happened, and as you know, which led to the scuttling of the Greek fleet at Poros by Admiral Miaoulis at the beginning of August, Kapodistrias was aware of the external manipulation and did not hesitate to denounce them on July 31, 1831. One, to the French Admiral Lalande, I'm aware of your manipulation, but I judged that I should not interrupt my collaboration with you, as I was giving more importance to the recovery of Greece. If I were to break off ties with the so-called protectors, it would be on the detriment of Greece's interest. I let things speak for themselves. On September 31, through Soutsos, the Greek ambassador in Paris, he protested strongly against the participation of English and French officers in the anti-government insurrection in Hydra and Mani. And one must not forget that one of the Kapodistrias murders, Konstantinos Mavromikalis, took refuge in the French embassy before being arrested. To finish my presentation, as I said, one side of the Jura mountain is known and popular. On the other side, nobody cares and nobody studies the life of Kapodistria. Thank you for listening to me.
Pierre, thank you so much for that fascinating presentation. And what's also the other question that we could ask is, how come in Switzerland they honor him a little bit more than they do in Ilias, which I think is also, an extremely interesting thing to discuss. Thank you again. Our next presenter is Dr. George Kalpadakis. He is a senior researcher in the field of foreign policy at the Modern Greek History Research Center of the Akadimi of Athens. He is Lewis Gibson Visiting Fellow at the Center of Greek Studies of the University of Cambridge, and in the past has been a Fulbright Scholar at the Center of European Studies at Harvard University, and a visiting scholar at the Center for Development Studies at the University of Cambridge. His research interests focus on political, diplomatic, and institutional aspects of the Hellenic Republic under the leadership of Kapodistrias. His most recent book, entitled The Balkan Confederation of Ioannis Kapodistrias, was just published in the Hellenic language. Welcome, George, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Lou, for the honor of inviting me on such a distinguished panel. I don't know if you can hear me well.
Yes, we can, and the honor is ours.
Great, thanks so much. Can I just ask Konstantinos if he'd be so kind as to put up the first slide? I only have a couple of slides because of the brevity of this, but maybe we can talk a little bit longer later. My talk is going to concern a comparison, which I think is quite interesting and significant. And specifically, it's going to be focused on the general political and conceptual outlooks of Kapodistrias and Erikas Velestinlis, who is the proto-martyr of the Greek Revolution, vis-a-vis the federal ideal. So the basic question I'm going to ask is, what did they envision, respectively, for the post-Ottoman Balkans and Greece's role in them? And how were their visions inspired by the ideas and ideals of their day? Among the ideas connected to the Enlightenment, which cultivated Greek political thought on the eve of the revolution, you found not only the Republican radical humanism of Montesquieu and Rousseau, but also the federal idea. We have to recall that the virtues of the American federal model, which had captivated the attention of Napoleon, would also fascinate Adamantios Korais, a major figure of the Greek Enlightenment. After the adoption of the Provisional Constitution by the First National Assembly in 1822, Korais had in fact proceeded to write up a commentary in which he declared that once the Greeks had won their freedom, they would have to adopt the American federal system, which, as he noted, was considered by all political philosophers and advanced states as the most perfect of all in every respect, end quote. Just like in the case of Alexis de Tocqueville, Kapodistrias' support for social and economic progress was tempered by a nostalgia for the old order. He acknowledged the inevitability of social change, but advocated moderation, rejecting revolutionary movements. His gradualist approach was infused with a belief in divine providence similar to the mysticism behind the Holy Alliance. Kapodistrias aimed to establish a new European order based on nation-states, constitutional government, and international cooperation. Metternich saw Kapodistrias' liberal leanings as a threat and used them to undermine him. Kapodistrias supported emerging nationalist movements and criticized the Restoration leaders' opposition to them. Despite his initial skepticism about the great powers' commitment to reform the international system, especially concerning Greece, Kapodistrias later embraced the spirit of the age during his presidency. He sought European aid for various issues, including institution building, finance, agriculture, and medicine, despite his reservations about Western motives. His split with Russia's foreign office over the Greek question didn't signify a departure from his liberal pragmatism or the Russian elite's paradigm. Archival documents so far reveal that his ideas remained consistent over time, even as he openly supported the Greek Revolution. At the end of the 18th century, Rigas Velestinlis had also set out his ideal of what he termed the Hellenic Republic, across a vast territory of great ethnic diversity that stretched from the northern edges of the Balkan Peninsula to the offshore islands of Greece and large parts of Asia Minor. His explicit goal was to reconcile the ideas of the radical Enlightenment with the non-homogeneous, culturally pluralist environment of the Balkans. Rigas was a Greek revolutionary leader with pan-Balkan significance, whose work bridged Enlightenment cosmopolitanism and the emerging age of nationalism. His goal was to overthrow Ottoman autocracy and establish modern governance institutions based on Enlightenment ideals. He envisioned a vast state with modern representation and participation, inspired by the radical Jacobin Constitution of 1793 and revolutionary France's Republic of Virtue. In his final pamphlet, published just before his arrest and execution, Rigas aimed to incite an uprising among the Ottoman Empire's subjects, including Turks, to transform the empire into a unitary free state, modeled on revolutionary France. Rigas sought to establish a pan-Balkan Hellenic Republic based on the principles of Montesquieu and Rousseau, believing that republican institutions and patriotism could overcome ethnic and religious differences. His constitutional plan aimed to unite the diverse peoples under a shared citizenship, regardless of their backgrounds. So he distinguished between his vision of enlightened republican Hellenism and emerging cultural nationalism, which he feared would undermine his radical republican ideals. The comparison between Rigas and Kapodistrias' projects reveals significant differences in their visions for the post-Ottoman Balkans. Kapodistrias proposed establishing a Balkan Confederation in 1828, envisioning democratic states operating based on representation at the Congress in Constantinople. However, unlike Rigas' radical Jacobinism, Kapodistrias' confederation was actually designed to be composed of monarchies. This decision wasn't rooted in deep-seated monarchic principles, but was rather a tactical choice to align the states with European courts, ensuring their support and guarantees for the confederation's survival. Despite these differences, Kapodistrias shared with Rigas a belief in the reformative and conciliatory powers of Enlightenment ideas in the Balkans. He believed that once the Confederation's viability was ensured, it could evolve into more democratic directions, indicating a common ground between him and Rigas regarding the transformative potential of Enlightenment ideals in the region. Kapodistrias' plan for the Balkan Confederation centered on leveraging the demographic factor in its relationship to economic growth. He saw the Confederation as a solution to Europe's problem of overpopulation at the time, absorbing surplus populations, needs created by years of war and revolution. He aimed to accomplish what the Congress of Vienna had failed to achieve, healing the continent through the Confederation's success. He believed that by engaging the great powers in the Confederation's development, they would promote mass immigration of workers, manufacturers, and soldiers to the region. Additionally, they would facilitate the transfer of ideas, expertise, modern machinery, and financial resources, enhancing the Balkan region's integration into international commercial networks. Kapodistrias argued that peace in Europe could only be secured by developing the Balkans into a thriving hub of commerce, manufacturing, and shipping. By prioritizing these sectors, particularly those in which Greeks excelled, he laid the groundwork for Greek hegemony within the Confederation. He shared Rigas's belief that the Greek factor possessed the elements necessary to unify the post-Ottoman Balkans. This was due not only to Greek dominance in commerce and shipping, but also because Greek served as the lingua franca in the Eastern Mediterranean, and because the spread of Enlightenment ideas in the region relied on the successful dissemination of Greek culture and literature. This conception of Greeks as the regional vanguard of the Enlightenment ideal actually relates to the belief held by Kapodistrias and many others at the time in the inescapability of Ottoman decline, which they consider to be an empire doomed to collapse sooner or later because of its inability to keep up with Western reforms. This helps to explain the warm reception that his plan received in St. Petersburg by the members of the Secret Committee of 1829 under the Russian Emperor. In fact, the main rapporteur and the emperor's chief advisor on the Near East, Dmitry Dashkov, would note that Kapodistrias' plan provided Russia with a sort of blueprint that could be enforced in the not-so-distant future. He too, like Kapodistrias, and a significant part of the Russian elite considered the self-dissolution of the Ottoman Empire inevitable sooner or later. Kapodistrias' focus on the economic and developmental potential of the Balkan Confederation suggests a strategy to westernize the region and reduce Russian influence. Despite diverging from Rigas's vision, Kapodistrias' project was grounded in Enlightenment principles, albeit implemented through collective guarantees by the great powers. Living in an era of nationalism, Kapodistrias believed that cultural pluralism and traditional identities couldn't be easily replaced by Enlightenment ideals, especially across the diverse Balkan region. His approach seems closer to that of Pierre than Rousseau, as it didn't rely on ethnic, religious, or linguistic bonds, nor on divine monarchic wisdom, and instead it aimed to create a zone of prosperity and progress for all of Europe, with monarchs serving as part of the system of guarantees ensuring the Confederation's viability. In brief, then, Rigas and Kapodistrias differed in their approaches to the post-Ottoman regeneration of the Balkan Peninsula. Rigas emphasized universal values and republican ideals without seeking external help, expressing faith in the ability of Balkan peoples to self-organize and liberate. In contrast, Kapodistrias acknowledged the need for revolutionary preparation and proposed alignment with the post-Napoleonic environment. He advocated for great powers coordination to reconfigure the region and transform it into a zone of peace and cooperation, integrating it into European political and economic life in order to prevent conflict and war. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, George, for that fascinating presentation. The comparison that you have here and what you presented, is that in your book also, or that this is something different or new?
No, it is actually a part of my book. It's one of the chapters, yeah.
Okay, that's fantastic. Our next presenter is a well-known film director, screenwriter, Ioannis Smaragdis. He was born in Crete and studied cinema in Greece and France. He made his first appearance in 1972 with the short film, quote, 2, 3 Things, end quote, which received the first prize at the Athens Film Festival, as well as a special mention at the Montreal Film Festival. The award-winning director has long had a long-standing and creative career, counting many commercial and artistic successes in cinema and television. Among of the many significant and multi-award-winning feature films include in 2020 with the governor, Ioannis Kapodistrias, of what we're discussing today. And filming has begun for this feature film of national and international importance based on the life and work of this great Hellenic politician, Ioannis Kapodistrias. Even before filming, Giannis was awarded with the first International Personality Award, quote, Ioannis Kapodistrias, end quote, from the Akadimi of Greek Arts Awards. His past international acclaimed full-length movies include, in 2017, Katsos, a major, mega internationally award-winning film feature, which reached number 2 at the Hellenic box office when released, based on the author's autobiography, Report to Greco. In 2012, he had that famous God Loves Caviar, an international award-winning feature film, international co-production, which reached number 2 at the Hellenic box office with international distribution. We go back 2007, El Greco, a feature award-winning film, international co-production, Greece, Spain, Hungary, with 1,200,000 admissions in Greece, a record number that has not been surpassed to this day with international distribution in many countries. And of course, in 1996, Kavafi, an award-winning feature film which reached also number 1 at the Greek box office and was screened for 12 consecutive years at the cinema in Paris. A record never accomplished by any other Hellenic film. Welcome, Giannis, and thank you for being with us today. And Giannis will be speaking in the Hellenic. Γεια σου, Giannis.
Γεια σου, Λου. Ευχαριστώ πολύ για την πρόσκληση. Εκφράζομαι καλύτερα στη γλώσσα μου και θέλω να με συγχωρέσετε που δεν είμαι κι εγώ ένας από τους ομιλητές που θα ομιλήσουν στα αγγλικά. Ήθελα να πω, πριν μιλήσω για το φιλμ, ότι υπηρετώ τη μεγάλη λαϊκή τέχνη των καιρών μας, που είναι ο κινηματογράφος. Ο κινηματογράφος έχει μία διείσδυση στην ανθρώπινη ψυχή σε βαθμό που δεν τον έχει καμία άλλη τέχνη. Αν εξαιρέσει κανείς τη μουσική, που όμως ο κινηματογράφος μπορεί να βάλει σε κίνηση πρόσωπα, προσωπικότητες, και εάν τα έργα που κάνουμε οι σκηνοθέτες είναι αγαθά, έχουν αγαθή ψυχή, κάνουν καλό στην ανθρώπινη ψυχή. Ο κινηματογράφος είναι μια τέχνη που οργανώθηκε στο περασμένο αιώνα, αλλά ως αντίληψη υπήρχε ήδη στην αρχαία Ελλάδα. Αν θυμηθείτε τον μύθο του σπηλαίου του Πλάτωνα, είναι μια αίθουσα κινηματογράφου στην πραγματικότητα. Δηλαδή τι είναι εκεί, είναι μέσα σε μια σπηλιά, άνθρωποι δεμένοι τροποντινά, βλέπουν μόνο μπροστά και βλέπουν ότι πίσω από τους ανθρώπους κινούνται και που κατά έναν τρόπο προβάλλονται στην οθόνη των ανθρώπων από ένα πυρσό, από ένα φως. Στην ουσία είναι ο κινηματογράφος. Επίσης, ο τρόπος που λειτουργεί ο κινηματογράφος μέσα στην αίθουσα είναι τι κάνει ο κινηματογράφος μέσα στην κλειστή αίθουσα. Καταργεί στιγμαία το θάνατο. Αυτή τη στιγμαία κατάργηση θανάτου συνέβαινε στα Ελευσίνια μυστήρια, όπου οι άνθρωποι έμπαιναν μέσα, αποκτούσαν μια συναίσθηση, καταργώντας ουσιαστικά το χρόνο, ότι η ψυχή είναι αθάνατη, που σημαίνει ότι έβγαιναν από εκεί και ήταν έτοιμοι να πολεμήσουν ή να πράξουν το καλό, που είναι και το αιώνιο ζητούμενο. Οι άνθρωποι να κάνουν το καλό και όχι το κακό. Ο Καποδίστριας είναι ένα μεγάλο πρόσωπο. Είναι ο μεγαλύτερος Έλληνας πολιτικός μετά, κατά τη γνώμη μου, μετά τον Περικλή των αρχαίων Αθηνών. Γιατί δεν ήταν απλώς ένας πολιτικός, ήταν ένας οραματιστής, ο οποίος σε δύσκολους καιρούς προσπάθησε να βοηθήσει ώστε η Ελλάδα να ελευθερωθεί από τους Τούρκους, και δεν είναι καταγεγραμμένο στην πραγματικότητα ο πραγματικός ρόλος του Καποδίστρια στην Επανάσταση. Υπάρχει μία πληροφορία ότι πήγε ένας από τους ηγέτες της φιλικής εταιρείας να του ζητήσει να ηγηθεί της Επανάστασης, και ο Καποδίστριας αρνήθηκε, και οι άνθρωποι δεν μπορούν να καταλάβουν μια πράξη σαν αυτή του Καποδίστρια, μια πράξη μιας μεγαλοφυΐας, διότι εάν ήταν ο αρχηγός θα το έλεγε σε κάποιον που θα ερχόταν να του ζητήσει να γίνει ενώ ήταν υπουργός εξωτερικών της Ρωσίας? Θα του έλεγε δεν μπορώ, διότι τότε δούλευε το τριαδικό σύστημα, δηλαδή ο αρχηγός των αρχηγών τον ήξεραν δύο, οι άλλοι δύο ήξεραν άλλους τρεις, άλλους δύο, δύο άνθρωποι ήξεραν το ρόλο του Καποδίστρια. Είναι πολύ πιο ουσιώδης ο ρόλος του Καποδίστρια στην Επανάσταση από ότι τον εμφανίζουν, και κυρίως τον εμφανίζουν αυτοί που εκ των υστέρων θα ήθελαν να λερώσουν το πρόσωπο του Καποδίστρια. Ο Καποδίστριας, θα ήθελα να σας πω ότι ήταν μια αγαθή ψυχή. Είχε δηλαδή τις αρετές της φυλής μας των Ελλήνων χωρίς τα ελαττώματά της. Χωρίς τα ελαττώματα των Ελλήνων. Ξεκίνησε στην ουσία, μπήκε στη ζωή μετά από ένα ατύχημα που είχε το άλογο που τον έριξε, το άλογο του στην Κέρκυρα όταν ήταν 16 χρονών, τον έσυρε και ως εκ θαύματος τον άφησε έξω από τη Μονή Πλατέρας της Παναγίας, νεκρό στην πραγματικότητα. Όταν επανήλθε ο Καποδίστριας, θεώρησε ότι επανήλθε από θαύμα της Παναγίας και η πρώτη του σκέψη ήταν να καλογερέψει, να γίνει παπάς. Στην πορεία αποφάσισε να γίνει γιατρός για να είναι χρήσιμος στους άλλους. Σπούδασε ιατρική και επέστρεψε στην Κέρκυρα, άσκησε το επάγγελμα του ιατρού χωρίς να πληρωθεί ποτέ. Αυτό είναι ένα σημείο κομβικό για τον Καποδίστρια, τι ποιότητας άνθρωπος ήταν. Έκτοτε έκανε μόνο το καλό, με ανιδιοτέλεια και αγάπη για τους άλλους. Κατάλαβε πολύ γρήγορα ότι πρέπει να ελευθερωθεί η πατρίδα και θα πρέπει να βρει το νήμα η χώρα, αφού απελευθερωθεί, να ξαναπαίξει ένα κεντρικό ρόλο στην διεθνή κοινότητα. Έτσι, ενώ όταν ήταν ακόμη σύμβουλος του, υπάλληλος στην ουσία στο Υπουργείο Εξωτερικών της Ρωσίας, έπεισε ο Καποδίστριας τον Τσάρο ότι πρόκειται για μια πολύ μεγάλη προσωπικότητα. Του ανέθεσε να κάνει αυτό που έκανε στην Ελβετία και στην ουσία απολύτως την έσωσε με ένα στρατήγημα. Δηλαδή έκανε κάτι που δεν το ήξερε ούτε καν ο Τσάρος. Τον υστέρων ο Τσάρος έμαθε τι ήταν αυτό που έκανε. Εκεί κατάλαβε ότι πρόκειται για μεγαλοφυΐα και στην ουσία τον έκανε υπουργό εξωτερικών. Επίσης δεν είναι γνωστό ότι στο συνέδριο της Βιέννης επρόκειτο να διαλυθεί, να τεμαχιστεί η Γαλλία και να το πάρουν τρεις δυνάμεις που είχαν νικήσει τον Ναπολέοντα μετά τον Βαδερνό. Ο Καποδίστριας πάλι με ένα τέχνασμα, με ένα στρατήγημα, με ένα μεγαλοφυές στρατήγημα, έσωσε τη Γαλλία. Οι Γάλλοι δεν το ξέρουν, αλλά αυτό έχει συμβεί. Γιατί τα έκανε όλα αυτά? Γιατί είχε στο μυαλό του όταν θα έρθει στην Ελλάδα, σαν να ήξερε ότι θα ήταν θεία εντολή να επιστρέψει κάποια στιγμή, να κάνει τη χώρα μεγάλη Και το ξέρουμε το σχέδιο αυτό από τα αρχεία των Αυστριακών, από το Μέττερνιχ. Ποιο ήταν το σχέδιο του Καποδιστρία? Υπήρχε σχέδιο. Αυτό είναι εντελώς άγνωστο. Θα το βάλει και αυτό η ταινία σε κίνηση. Η ταινία βέβαια, κοιτάξτε, δεν είναι μια ιστορική, είναι μια ιστορική ταινία, αλλά δεν είναι μόνο μια ιστορική ταινία. Δηλαδή τα περιστατικά που βάζω μέσα στην ταινία είναι 100% τα πραγματικά περιστατικά, 100%. Και βάζω τα πράγματα που δεν μπορεί να γράψει η ιστορία, τα οποία ολοκληρώνουν την προσωπικότητα αυτού του τεράστιου προσώπου. Δηλαδή τι δεν μπορεί να κάνει ένας ιστορικός? Δεν μπορεί να ασχοληθεί πάνω σε αυτό που έλεγαν όσοι τον γνώρισαν τον Καποδίστρια. Ο Καποδίστριας είχε μια ροπή προς το καλό. Το ροπή προς το καλό σημαίνει ότι ήθελε να κάνει την Ελλάδα μια χώρα να ξαναβάλει σε κίνηση τις μεγάλες οικουμενικές αξίες της φιλαλληλίας και της αγάπης για τους άλλους. Το σχέδιο λοιπόν ήταν να κάνει την Ελλάδα χώρα μήτρα που θα δημιουργήσει τα καινούργια πράγματα, θα έβαζε σε κίνηση τις μεγάλες καινούργιες κατακτήσεις, να τις γεννούσε και στην ουσία να επαναφέρει το ελληνικό αίσθημα, δηλαδή τι? Το μέτρο. Δηλαδή όταν η ανθρωπότητα θα χανόταν ή θα χαθεί, για να επανέρθει θα πρέπει να βρει το μέτρο. Η Ελλάδα λοιπόν έπρεπε να υπάρχει για να μπορεί η ανθρωπότητα όταν θα στραβοπατήσει, το βλέπουμε προς τα που πηγαίνει, να μπορεί να ξαναγυρίσει στη χώρα μήτρα, ώστε να επανέβρει και να δημιουργήσουν συνθήκες για τους ανθρώπους που να μπορέσουν να ζήσουν σε ευδαιμονία. Αυτός ο μεγάλος λοιπόν άνθρωπος, όταν ήρθε στην Ελλάδα, ήξερε ότι θα δολοφονηθεί. Τον είχε ειδοποιήσει η Τσαρίνα, η σύντροφος του Τσάρου Νικολάου, του πρώτου. Του είπε μην πάτε εκεί, θα σας σκοτώσουν. Και αυτός είπε, εγώ πρέπει να κάνω το καθήκον μου. Με καλή πατρίδα πρέπει να πάνε την υπηρετήσω. Του το είπε η Ροξάντρα Στούρτζα, μια γυναίκα που είχε μια τραγική ιστορία, ήταν μια τραγική, τρομερή ιστορία αυτή. Το πόσο Μέττερνιχ δεν άφησε ποτέ να γίνει αυτός, να συνευρεθούν αυτά τα δύο πλάσματα που αγαπούσαν στο άλλο μαζί, αγαπούσαν και οι δύο μαζί την Ελλάδα. Και του είπε μην πας στην Ελλάδα, θα σε σκοτώσουν. Και είπε και να με σκοτώσουν εγώ πρέπει να πάω. Όταν έφτασε στην Ελλάδα, κοιτάξτε να δείτε τι συμβαίνει με τα μεγάλα, τα ιερά πρόσωπα, γιατί ο Καποδίστριας ήταν ένα ιερό πρόσωπο. Ο λαός, αυτό τον κόμις ήταν, τον αριστοκράτη, τον έβλεπε σαν να ήταν Θεός, Άγιος. Γυναίκες που είχαν χάσει τα παιδιά τους στους εμφυλίους και στον πόλεμο, νεκρά τα σήκωναν επάνω και του λέγανε δώσ' του ζωή. Του φιλούσαν τα χέρια, βάζανε κάτω βάγια όπως υποδέχτηκαν τον Ιησού. Καταλάβαινε δηλαδή ο κόσμος την αγαθή ψυχή του. Η ταινία λοιπόν θέλει να αναδείξει τόσο τα πραγματικά ιστορικά περιστατικά, όσο και τι σημασία έχει να είναι κανείς Έλληνας. Ο Καβάφης έλεγε ελληνικός δεν υπάρχει ιδιώτης τιμιωτέρα. Αυτές τις αξίες που διαμόρφωσαν τον ελληνικό πολιτισμό ήθελε να βάλει σε κίνηση. Και ήξερε ότι ο μόνος τρόπος να μπορέσουν οι μελλοντικοί άνθρωποι να κατανοήσουν τη σημασία των πραγμάτων που υπερασπιζόταν ο Καποδίστριας ήταν στην κρίσιμη στιγμή να θυσιαστεί. Και το θυσιάζομαι σημαίνει γιατί ήταν άνθρωπος της πίστης και της αγάπης, όπως είπαμε, ότι μπήκε στο μονοπάτι του Χριστού. Και όταν ήταν λίγο πριν κλείσει τα μάτια του, γύρισε το κεφάλι του ψηλά, κοίταξε στον ουρανό και είπε στο Θεό δηλαδή, δώσε μου την πατρίδα που ποθώ. Αυτή την ψυχή και το χρωματισμό της θέλω να κάνω ταινία. Αυτή την ανώτερη μορφή. Και θέλω να σας πω ότι και για την προηγούμενη ταινία για τον Καζαντζάκη, που στη Νέα Υόρκη όταν παίχτηκε είχε μια τεράστια υποδοχή από το φίλο μου το Τζίμι Ντεμέτρο. Θα τη φέρουμε και εκεί. Την πρεμιέρα θα την κάνουμε στη Νέα Υόρκη. Αγαπητέ Λου, το άκουσες?
Ακούω.
Ναι. Πήγα και βρήκα, λοιπόν, είχα ζητήσει από τον Πατριάρχη την ευλογία του να κάνω τον Καποδίστρια, τον Καζαντζάκη, για να τελειώσουν και οι έρηδες ανάμεσα στην Εκκλησία και στον Καζαντζάκη τελείωσαν. Και με το θάρρος ότι αυτά έγιναν και αγαπήθηκε η ταινία και ο Καζαντζάκης είχε τελείωσε το θέμα με την Εκκλησία, του ζήτησα την ευλογία του για να κάνω την ταινία Καποδίστριας. Μου την έδωσε και έκανε μια παύση και μου είπε, έχουν έρθει από το Άγιον Όρος και μου έχουν ζητήσει να τον κάνω Άγιο, τον Καποδίστρια. Με κοίταξε, δεν μίλησα. Μου λέει, ίσως είναι νωρίς. Δεν είπα τίποτα. Είναι Άγιος άνθρωπος, καταλαβαίνει πολύ καλά ότι... Μέσα μου όμως είπα, ναι, αλλά αν η ταινία γίνει θα τον κάνετε Άγιο. Γιατί ήταν Άγιος ο Καποδίστριας. Είναι ένας Άγιος της Οικουμενικής της Μεγάλης Ελλάδας. Αυτό τον άνθρωπο θέλω να βάλω σε κίνηση για την Ελλάδα και τον ελληνισμό. Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ.
Thank you so much for that, for bringing out the human aspect, you know, bringing up the what took place when he was 16 years old with the horse, and the religious aspect, the deeply religious aspect of Kapodistrias, and also mentioning the you know, sort of like a question that was asked by Pierre earlier, having to do with why France actually is not doing what they're supposed to be doing in terms of honoring Kapodistria, where you mentioned, for example, in the post Napoleonic period, he saved France. He actually saved France. So obviously there's something wrong with the perspective, certainly not in Switzerland, but there's certainly something wrong with this perspective that many have with him in Ilias, where he's not honored appropriately. By the way, unmute yourselves now. You know, we're going to just have an open discussion right now. Obviously, he's not appropriately recognized in the land of his birth, and also in France that Pierre brought up, and that was further discussed by Giannis. This part of the panel discussion is open. So anyone who wants to ask any questions at all, we're just going to have an open dialogue right now. So any questions to any of the participants by any of the panelists is fine. We're sitting in a living room talking to ourselves about a great man. Any questions, Ilias, on your end, to anybody?
I'd like to ask Mr. Smaragdis, could you see?
Αν θέλεις να μιλήσεις στα ελληνικά είναι εντάξει.
Ελληνικά.
Πολύ ωραία.
Hey, listen, don't forget, 2 days ago was
πολύ ενδιαφέρον. Περιμένουμε την ταινία με πολύ ενδιαφέρον.
Ilias, 1 second. 2 days ago was International Hellenic Language Day. So δεν με νοιάζει αν μιλάτε ελληνικά τώρα.
So let's honor Greek then. Greek language.
Ελληνικά είπαμε. Ναι.
Πολύ ενδιαφέρουσα πραγματικά η προοπτική και περιμένουμε την ταινία με πολύ ενδιαφέρον και σε όλη την Ελλάδα. Στην Κέρκυρα, από ό,τι καταλαβαίνετε, με ακόμη μεγαλύτερο ενδιαφέρον. Έχετε βρεθεί εδώ και είδατε με πόσο ενθουσιασμό οι κάτοικοι του νησιού ενδιαφέρονται για την ταινία και θέλουν να γίνουν κατά το δυνατόν μέρος της, να λάβουν μέρος, να βοηθήσουν όσο γίνεται κλπ. Είδατε σε αυτήν την πορεία κάποιο σκοτεινό σημείο στην προσωπικότητα του Ιωάννη Καποδίστρια?
Ο Οδυσσέας Ελίτης λέει κάποια στιγμή, όσοι λευκοφόροι εννοείτωσαν. Τους λευκοφόρους όπως ήταν ο Καποδίστριας, μόνο αυτοί που έχουν λευκή καθαρή ψυχή μπορούν να το κατανοήσουν. Ήταν ένας άσπυλος. Δεν υπάρχει καμία σκιά πουθενά. Πουθενά. Φανταστείτε ότι όταν ήρθε στην Ελλάδα και δεν είχε το ταμείο ούτε μια μονέδα, ένα νόμισμα, πήγε και βρήκε τον Κοντουριώτη και του ζήτησε να του δώσει ένα δάνειο για να ταΐσει τους ανθρώπους που λιμοκτονούσαν και τα παιδιά. Και για να του το δώσει ο Κοντουριώτης, έβαλε ο Καποδίστριας, του είπε ότι θα βάλει ενέχειρο την περιουσία του πατέρα του. Όχι μόνο δεν πληρωνόταν όταν ήταν εκεί, δεν πήρε ποτέ αμοιβή, ποτέ, και την περιουσία του πατέρα του ήθελε να εκποιήσει για να δώσει στους στόχους να φάνε. Και ο Κοντουριώτης, ο πλουσιότερος ίσως άνθρωπος της Μεσογείου ήταν τότε, του είπε, δώστε μου τα λεφτά που μου χρωστάτε που έβαλα στην Επανάσταση να στα δώσω. Δεύτερον, όταν οι Αγγλέζοι, ο Άγγλος που επιτετραμένος, την προηγούμενη μέρα του φόνου πήγε και τον βρήκε, είναι καταγεγραμμένα αυτά που σας λέω. Του είπε να σας φυγαδεύσουμε γιατί θα σας σκοτώσουν. Και ο Καποδίστριας είπε, μα εγώ θέλετε να με λασπώσετε δηλαδή. Μα εγώ ξέρω και ποιος θα με σκοτώσει. Ποιος θα σηκώσει το χέρι. Εσείς το οργανώσατε. Οι μαυρομιχαλαίοι θα με σκοτώσουν. Αλλά τι θα πει η ιστορία για εσάς? Και μετά πήγε σε μια εκκλησία, προσευχήθηκε και κατέβηκε την άλλη μέρα ψέλνοντας να πεθάνει. Ποιες σκιές? Όλα αυτά τα πράγματα, τα φρικτά που λένε διάφοροι, που είναι κατασκευές των εχθρών του Καποδίστρια, ότι ήταν δικτάτορας και τα λοιπά, θέλω να σας πω το εξής, που είναι επίσης άγνωστο. Ο Καποδίστριας όταν ήρθε και ζήτησε από τη Βουλή να τον ψηφίσουν, να του δώσουν τις εξουσίες στα χέρια, γιατί ήταν πάλι σε εμφύλιο, ήταν πολύ δύσκολες καταστάσεις, έπρεπε ένας να παίρνει τις αποφάσεις. Τον ψήφισε η Βουλή. Και ξέρετε αυτό που έκανε τι είναι, που αργότερα οι εχθροί του είπαν ότι ήταν δικτάτορας? Χρησιμοποίησε ένα νόμο του Σόλωνα. Ο νόμος αυτός λεγόταν Συμνητία και συμνήτης ήταν αυτός ο οποίος του έδινε η πόλη την εξουσία να παίρνει μόνος του τις αποφάσεις σε κρίσιμες στιγμές για να σωθεί η χώρα. Δηλαδή εφήρμοσε με ένα αρχαίο ελληνικό νόμο και οι άσχετοι το θεώρησαν δικτατορική συμπεριφορά. Δεν υπάρχει πουθενά, καταγεγραμμένο πουθενά, ούτε ανθρώπινα ελαττώματα δεν είχε. Φανταστείτε ότι ακόμη και οι εχθροί του, στο τέλος και ο Μέτερνιχ είπε ότι είναι άτρωτος γιατί είναι ό,τι δεν είμαστε εμείς. Είναι καλός άνθρωπος. Αυτό.
Pierre, any questions to any of the participants? Any thoughts with regards to that?
Well, I was extremely interested in all the talks of everyone. I think, well, I already had the chance to see the first the first film on Kapodistria, who already transformed Kapodistria in a kind of hero, but more than a hero, an Ios Kapodistrias, είναι η εικόνα που δίνεται εσείς το πιο πολύ. Πιστεύω από την πολιτική πλευρά είναι πολύ σπουδαίο αυτό που είπε ο Γιώργος, γιατί το έβαλε σε ένα πλαίσιο πανευρωπαϊκό, αλλά ίσως μου φαίνεται λίγο παράξενο, γιατί είναι νωρίς να έχετε τέτοιες όψεις. Δεν πιστεύετε ότι η γνώμη σας, or let's say in English so that more people maybe understand, it's anachronic. Don't you think it's you should do defend yourself? I had the impression that your brilliant talk, which I admire, I knew you since a few years, and I admire your expression and your knowledge and your science and your view. But my impression today was that you transfer the views we would have today, not Switzerland, because we are out of Europe, but the rest of Europe, an European, you make Kapodistria the first European. Don't you exaggerate? Isn't it 200 years too early?
That's excellent question, Pierre. Excellent question. I had to read about 3 or 4 times the 2 letters that I discovered in the Russian archives to believe what I was reading. And it seems that he is one of the first Europeans. I don't think, I think I'm going to send you one, the next time we get a chance, I'll send you my new book, because I have these documents. And it seems that he was, well, first of all, he was a pragmatist above everything else, because if you look at the kind of proposals that he wrote up in his, especially in his diplomatic and political correspondence, it's very self-contained and comprehensive, but not necessarily the same month by month, because these things changed so quickly between 1828 and 1831, as you know. So the views that he expressed in, for example, in the 2 letters that I referred to towards, which were, by the way, directed to Count Nesselrode, who was then his successor and co-minister, actually, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia, who had asked him about his views. He said, look, we're about to go to war with the Ottoman Empire. This was 1828. Could you please give me your ideas, your proposals about what you would do, what kind of plans you would have? Because it seemed as well that Russia would probably be victorious. So in 2 letters, which I will happily share with you very soon, he seems to actually express many of these views, which are, I'm telling you, I had to read them 3 or 4 times to believe how modern they are, how European they are, because I'm also many times allergic to, you know, this kind of anachronistic view of putting what we see today backwards. But maybe I've overstated my case, but I think you'll also share these views with me when you read them.
Yeah, Pierre, thank you for the question, and George, thank you for that response. And actually, I took myself off the camera to get a book, actually, which was nearby, and that's the one by Professor Mark Mauser, which has to do with the Greek Revolution, and he entitled it "The Greek Revolution, 1821 and the Making of Modern Europe." Okay, because what he was basically saying in his book, and he has some fascinating things about the revolution, is that in fact, Pierre, you're correct in many different ways. It may be 200 years later, and maybe people don't recognize the international importance of the Hellenic Revolution, but it's certainly when you read the book and you read some of the conversation we're having right now, that modern Europe to a certain degree was made by what took place in the Hellenic Revolution, and certainly Kapodistrias was not only a Hellenic Ios, okay, but he was also a European and international Ios. And thank you, Yanni, for bringing up this thing about the Ios. Yanni, do you have any questions from anybody or anything that was said?
Εγώ θέλω να πω κάτι.
Ναι.
Έχετε δίκιο. Ο Καποδίστριας ήταν καταρχήν, είχε προσπαθήσει να πείσει τον Τζάρο να γίνει η Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση. Που επίσης δεν είναι γνωστό. Και του είχε πει ακριβώς πώς να γίνει. Δεύτερον, ο Καποδίστριας λάτρευε τις Ηνωμένες Πολιτείες της Αμερικής. Που επίσης δεν είναι γνωστό. Και τρίτον, να σας πω ότι το σενάριο, να μιλήσω για την ταινία, το διάβασε ένας άνθρωπος του κινηματογράφου από το Hollywood και όταν το τελείωσε είπε «Μα αυτός είναι ο Καποδίστριας είναι ο Έλληνας Κέννεντι». Δηλαδή βρήκε στον τρόπο με τον οποίο προσπαθούσε να φέρει ένα καινούριο αέρα στις Ηνωμένες Πολιτείες ο Κέννεντι και γι' αυτό δολοφονήθηκε, ότι ο Καποδίστριας θα έφερε ένα καινούριο αέρα στην Ελλάδα, στην Ευρώπη και στον τότε κόσμο στην πραγματικότητα, εφαρμόζοντας ας πούμε τις ελληνικές αξίες που έχουν ως κέντρο την αγαθότητα, την καλοσύνη και τη φιλαγγελία και έτσι κατά έναν τρόπο μοιάζει η θυσία τους να είναι όμοια. Αυτό θέλω να πω. Θέλω να πω από μόνος του ο Καποδίστριας είναι μια διεθνής προσωπικότητα. Από μόνος του.
All right. Thank you. Συγγνώμη, τελείωσε.
Ναι, και ελπίζω η ταινία να το βάλει σε κίνηση. Δηλαδή αυτός ο άγνωστος άνθρωπος να φέρει, να βάλει σε κίνηση τις αξίες που αντιπροσωπεύει, που είναι χρήσιμες για την ανθρωπότητα. Αυτό.
Thank you. We're going to start to wrap this up, and I'd like to just get some final comments on what was discussed. I'm going to start with Ilias. And Ilias, please do us a favor and discuss what's happening, the fascinating thing that's happening in May in Kerkera, relating to the 200th anniversary of the founding of the Ionian Akadimi in Corfu. Okay, Ilias.
Thanks for the opportunity. With great pleasure. We have been programming. We have planned a great array of activities regarding this celebration, this anniversary, which is very important for the Ionian University as well, which is only 40 years old, but has a grandparent which is much older and very celebrous one, the Ionian Academy. And we're very proud to be able to celebrate this anniversary. It is the first educational institution of higher education in nowadays Greece, and it was very authentic and very genuine, and had this trademark of Lord Guildford, very important plans regarding not only education but also care for the students, a botanical garden of the university, the Mensa for the university, and celebrations and the involvement of the students everywhere. We'll be happy to have exhibitions regarding Lord Guildford and the establishment of the Ionian University. We'll have a scientific congress in Corfu regarding the education in the Ionian Islands in the 19th century. Many lectures online, and the events will be throughout the year, and you are all welcome, and thank you very much, Lou, for the opportunity to give this information.
Thank you, Ilias. Pierre, some final thoughts for today?
Well, I bring two ideas from 2 days or three. One of you mentioned that the Kapodistria was the greatest Greek politician after Pericles, which is quite something. I like that idea. And the other great idea, which just appeared, is that you have a parallel between Kapodistria and Kennedy, which is also something. I mean, we climb very high in the sky of the IE and of the heroes of our time. It's a very stimulating encounter and a very stimulating roundtable. I thank you, Lou. It's a great achievement. Congratulations, and thank you for all of you.
Thank you so much, Pierre. George, some final thoughts for today?
I'll be very brief. I was very fascinated to hear all the different ideas and opinions about Kapodistrias, and I'm very happy that you invited me on this panel today. I'm just going to leave you with one final thought, which is connected to what Mr. Smaragdis was saying earlier. It's a little bit of what we call an adilogos, which is that Kapodistrias was, as we know. Excuse me?
Στα ελληνικά πες το.
Στα ελληνικά είναι ότι ο Kapodistrias, υπήρχε ένας αντίλογος στον Kapodistria και στο πρότυπο της ηγεσίας που πρέσβευε και αφορούσε στην ανάγκη ενός το να υπάρχει, ειδικά όταν άρχισε να κορυφώνεται η αντιπολίτευση και ο αγώνας κατά του Kapodistria, ότι ενδεχομένως εκείνο που χρειαζόταν στη συγκυρία εκείνη η Ελλάδα να ήταν ένα Washington, ένα Μπολιβάρ, δηλαδή έναν ηγέτη ο οποίος είχε και στρατιωτική εμπειρία. Αυτό δεν αφαιρεί κάτι από τον Kapodistria, από αυτά που είπατε σχετικά με τον ίδιο τον Kapodistria, αλλά πάντως ήταν ένας αντίλογος και αν δεν κάνω λάθος και ο Γκέτε ο ίδιος το είχε αναφέρει αυτό, αν δεν κάνω λάθος σε κάποιο διάλογο που μεταφέρθηκε αργότερα, και αξίζει να το σκεφτούμε ότι οι ακραίες εποχές καμιά φορά χρειάζονται και μια τέτοιου είδους, ένα τέτοιο πρότυπο ηγεσίας, το οποίο ήταν κάτι το οποίο δεν ήταν ακριβώς αυτό του Kapodistria, πλην όμως αυτό δεν αναιρεί τίποτα.
Αν μου επιτρέπετε,
ναι.
Το στρατιωτικό μυαλό ήταν επίσης ένας μεγάλος Έλληνας που το λάτρευε το Kapodistria, ήταν ο Θεόδωρος Κολοκοτρώνης. Δηλαδή ήταν διάδα. Αυτό είναι η απάντηση σε αυτό που λέτε.
Και ο Κολοκοτρώνης παρέμεινε και μετά τη δολοφονία του μαζί με τον Αυγουστίνο, δηλαδή παρέμεινε στο στρατόπεδο.
Βεβαίως. Στο στρατόπεδο της Ελλάδος. Γιατί αυτό ήταν το θέμα. Δεν ήτανε από τη μια μεριά οι Οθωμανοί και από την άλλη μεριά οι ιδιωτελείς. Αυτοί οι κοτσαμπάστες που ήθελαν τη χώρα να την έχουν στα χέρια τους. Και όχι να είναι μια χώρα ανεξάρτητη και από τα συμφέροντα. Οι κοτσαμπάστες θέλανε μια Ελλάδα που να έχει ο καθένας το δικό του, επιτρέψτε μου, μαγαζί. Ο Kapodistrias ήθελε να κάνει μια χώρα που στο κέντρο της να είναι η Ελλάδα, η πατρίδα. Αυτή ήταν η διαφορά.
Yes, and in the end, the Kapodistrias took over. Anyway, Giannis, some final thoughts. Τελευταίες ιδέες για σήμερα.
Ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ. Χαίρομαι πολύ που το κάναμε αυτό το πράγμα με εσάς τους ανθρώπους που είστε της Αμερικής και όχι μόνο, γιατί και ο Kapodistrias ήταν ένας από εσάς. Ήταν όπως είστε κι εσείς. Ήταν Έλληνας που έζησε στο εξωτερικό, έγινε μεγάλο πρόσωπο, αλλά ποτέ δεν έφυγε από την καρδούλα του και το μυαλό του η Ελλάδα, που το κάνετε κι εσείς και με αυτή την εκπομπή που κάνετε τώρα, και σας ευχαριστώ πολύ που με καλέσατε.
Thank you so much. This has been an amazing and fascinating discussion that we're going to continue. What I'd like to do, as I mentioned before, is I'd like us to get together in Athens, where we should be speaking also, and we could be speaking the Hellenic language if you care to discuss Kapodistrias, hopefully on March 21st in Athens.
Okay.
And obviously right before a few days later, before the anniversary of the Hellenic Revolution, because Kapodistrias has really not been appreciated as much as he should be, and what's been discussed today involving the Hellenic Revolution, and the fact that maybe more than anyone, even though it's not apparent, more than anyone, he helped create the modern nation of Hellas, perhaps more than anyone, including, I hate to say this, the very famous fighters who fought in the revolution. But we'll continue, hopefully in Athens.
Okay.
For the audience, we're in a couple of weeks. Our next panel discussion will be on Nostos and citizenship for Hellenic adoptees. For those who don't know, there were 4,000 adoptees that in some cases were not even legal adoptees who were sent to the United States and other parts of Europe. And now these adoptees who have gotten older have realized their roots, and many of them want to come back to Hellas, but the government is making it very difficult for them to gain their citizenship, even though it's guaranteed by the Hellenic Constitution that people of Hellenic descent have the ability to get passports and things of that nature. So that will be in about 2 weeks. We'll have that very good discussion. Thank you to the panelists again. We will see each other very soon in March in Athens and discuss this great man, Ioannis Kapodistrias. Thank you again. Thank you all.